So welcome everybody to this panel on youth leadership in global health, which is organized by Transform Health, Fondation Botnar and Y-ACT. My name is Dzikunu, and I'm a facilitator for the Young Expert Tech for Health, which is a global platform of young people working to shape and guide the agenda towards achieving universal health coverage by 2030 through data and digital technologies. In this session, we are going to talk about the importance of leveraging the knowledge, the dynamism of African youth to shape health policies and programs in digital during and post-COVID-19. I'm very pleased to be moderating this fantastic panel with 4 inspiring leading global health practitioners and also someone also in the field of politics. We are very, this session has all of these young people who have the diverse experience from all these different fields, and they are joining us to share their experiences and perspective. So first, I would mention Dr. Shakira, Choonara, who is a youth ambassador with the African Union, also a public health practitioner and Operation Smile ambassador for South Africa. We also have Dr. Natasha, Kaoma, who is the CEO of Copper Rose, Zambia. We also have, in the field of politics, Honorable Johnson Sakaja, who is the chair of Kenya Youth Parliamentary Association. And last but not the least, our panelist, Tito, Ovia, co-founder of Helium Health Nigeria. We also want to hear from you throughout the session, because we know there are so many of you joining us from different parts of the world who are interested in this topic. Because when it comes to young people, when it comes to leadership, everyone wants to be part of this process. And so we really want to hear from all of you who are joining us in this session today. Please feel free to use the chat function to share your comment and questions throughout the session, and we will take note of them. If a panelist does raise a question or a comment and you feel that you want to share an opinion or also contribute to that, please feel free to do so, because we want to hear from all of you and also get your perspective. Now, before we begin, we are going to kickstart with a short video featuring some of the young people we have had different consultations with, who have shared their views on the topic for today's session, which is strengthening youth leadership in global health. Definitely, an hour will not be enough to do justice to everything that we will discuss today, but through the power of social media, we're able to reach out to so many young people from over the world, and we have sampled a number of their opinions to share with you in today's session. So enjoy the video.
Young people are people who bring out ideas. Young people are people who bring out solutions to the problems that we have.
I don't think I have enough of a voice or an influential voice, because our participation is usually limited to a very tokenistic kind of participation where it's just about checking a box.
Our voices are drowned. We may be called to conferences to represent young people and say this is what young people feel, but then whatever the action plans after the conferences are never really implemented.
We are invited at the beginning as consultative process. However, when it comes to the decision making, we are not taken seriously, or we are put on the side, or our decisions, our voices don't make it to the end of the decision process. And it's a pity, because we have so much to share.
Young people have the capability. Young people have the energy. What we young people lack is the right training, the right mentorship, and a platform where we can be able to voice our rights.
Most Kenyans now, who are predominantly young people, do not have strategic information that will help them in making informed decisions. And within the realm of health, most young people do not know the basics of where to access what services at what level. That means that the uptake of services, even if provided by government, is very, very low.
I'm talking about having one major youth hub, an international, a global youth hub, whereby young people from different countries are able to to learn and unlearn from the same resource center. Young people are able to gain skills from the same resource center.
We need and we are asking decision makers to create an equitable access, to invest in providing young people with all the means necessary for us to be at the table, be it education, be it access to internet, be it access to as simple as a laptop.
Young people require financial investment in the activities that they are doing across the globe.
The decisions will be better off. The decisions will be more inclusive. Take us as equal partners.
I'm excited about AHAIC because we're not only going to talk about some of these important issues, especially this session on capitalizing on the digital space, but we are going to make action plans. And I'm really so excited to see the implementation of this action plan. So let's do this, guys. AHAIC is here. Let's participate. Let's share. Let's exchange ideas. And yeah, let's make the world a better place, as someone would say it. Thank you so much.
And that was the video we had from young people who were sharing their opinions and their perspective on today's session, Strengthening Youth Leadership in Global Health. And I think they have already set a tone for the discussion, highlighting some important things. Young people are listened to, but what happens to the outcome? Some are saying we need equal partnership. And most importantly, one reflection is that what happens when we attend other conferences and make the outcome recommendations. So the young people have set a stage for today's discussion, and I'll now invite each of my panelists to introduce themselves more and tell us who they are and what they do as we kickstart the topic. So maybe I'll pick first from Dr. Shakira.
So good afternoon, young people, or good evening, or whatever the time is from wherever you're tuning in from across the world. Richard, it's amazing to see you again, even though it's virtually. Very briefly, my bread and butter, my heart and soul is all centered on public health. And I work in various institutions, sit on various boards, for example. And outside of healthcare, an interesting fact is that I'm pursuing acting as well.
Thank you very much, Dr. Shakira. Outside of health, she also pursues acting, where she sometimes also does highlight the issues of global health even in there, which is very important. So let me move to our next panelist, Tito from Nigeria. Tito, welcome.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me today. Like I've been introduced, my name is Tito Ovia. I am one of the co-founders for Helium Health and the head of public sector group. Helium Health is a healthcare technology company, and our mission is to accelerate Africa into a better healthcare system using data and technology. We have a plethora of products such as like an electronic medical records platform, telemedicine solution. We provide microfinancing, collateral-free loans to hospitals, and we're spread across 5 countries: Nigeria, Ghana, Liberia, and Senegal. And we've been doing this since 2016. Outside Helium Health, I'm also a founding member for the Feminist Coalition, which is a women's rights advocacy group that's sort of focused on of course empowering women, financial independence, and of course making sure that women have representation in public office. So yeah, just a little bit about me. Thank you.
Thank you, Tito. I guess that's the right profile for today's discussion, also where we talk about leadership and your various experiences. Let me move to Dr. Natasha, who is also joining us from Zambia.
Hi, Richard. Mulishani Wonse. Good afternoon, everyone. That's my native language, which is Bemba. I'm very happy to be on this call today, to be attending this conference. I'm slowly getting used to this virtual thing, and I'm afraid we might have problems when the world opens. But just to introduce myself, I'm a medical doctor, epidemiologist, and a global international sexual and reproductive health and rights advocate. I am the CEO of Zambia, which is a youth-led organization that works with women and young people, and our vision is a world in which these groups of people are happy, healthy, and living to their full potential. Apart from that, I also do lots of work around the globe. I sit on the Every Woman, Every Child board as a youth representative, as well as the Family Planning 2030 reference group. That and many other roles. If I'm not working, I like to play basketball, yeah.
Amazing. That and many other roles, again, signifying the kind of area of profile we have on today's panel to really do justice to the topic. But most other importantly, we mentioned young people. Where are they when we talk about politics? Where are the young people in the decision-making process? And who said there are no young people actively engaged? Our next panelist is Honorable Johnson Sakaja. Thank you very much for joining.
Thank you very much, Richard. My profile is not as exciting as Natasha's or Shakira. I'm not an actor and I don't play basketball much, but I'm a member of the Kenyan legislature in part of the leadership. I'm the senator for Nairobi, which is the capital city of this country. And I'm honored to serve 4.3 million residents of Nairobi and Kenya as a whole. I'm also the chairman of the Young Parliamentarians Association, which is an association we started targeting young legislators below the age of 35 at the time of the election. I have 50 members currently and 1,047 members of our local governments who are below 35 and who are passionate about some of these discussions we're having and about young people in leadership. So I'm really pleased and excited to be here to have this conversation with everybody from across the globe. And I must say that I'm an ardent Pan-Africanist. So this kind of conversations are really exciting for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'm trying to keep my own excitement, just looking at the young people we have on today's panel, the topic, and how this all fits into also your various backgrounds. And so for our audience, we again want to hear from you. We want this to be as interactive as possible. So please use the chat function to share your comment, to share your views, and let us know what you also think about today's topic. At some point, we will be picking up on some of your views. So we kickstart today's session, and I will go first to Dr. Shakira. I think when it comes to meaningful youth engagement, we have had opportunity to work on a number of issues. I remember in Accra in 2018, we were talking about a number of things, including how young people can be meaningfully engaged even at the African Union level. And we discussed how you would want to join the AU Youth Advisory Council, which you are part of now and playing an active role. As a public health practitioner, you hold a number of high-profile offices. And can you start us off by telling us more about the ways in which young people can play a leadership role when it comes to digital health, when it comes to health? And more specifically, I know you've been engaging actively in different processes. What lessons have you learned about how to ensure young people have a seat at the table as part of decision-making processes?
So Richard, feel free to call me Shakira, right? And then also, I think as we kick off this discussion, I was wondering if we even should have this discussion because the videos really captured everything that we need to speak about. But I guess let me unapologetically expand on these different facets. And I think that when we're talking about youth engagement, I'm going to speak very frankly about it. So if you don't like what we're saying, you may have to leave the room or stay here and fight with us, I guess. But I think it's on two fronts. I think the one is what's the responsibility of global health organizations, but not just global health organizations, national bodies, continental bodies, regional bodies. And then what's the responsibility of young people? And I think those two come together for a powerful recipe to change and achieve better healthcare. So when we're talking about global health institutions, and I'm going to speak about 3 or 4 key areas that I think are important. And the one is purpose. Why are you inviting young people? Why do you want to include young people? If it's just for a conference, then yes, as one of the video's speakers said, it's a checkbox exercise. To the extent that they even script what you're going to say, how you're going to say it, what question you will be asked. That's not inclusion. Many of us agree on that, right? But if you're a global health organization or any organization that's thinking about how do you build a cohort of young people, and I've seen that in the research space, I think that's exciting. Investing in someone for 5 to 10 years Are you planning to professionalize youth? So, for example, the Junior Public JPO program by the United Nations. But also then linked to that. So you've got your purpose set out as an organization. Why do you want to include youth? What do you want to do with them? That's important. Or what do you want to do with us, rather? Then I think we have to talk about professionalization. It's unacceptable that in the entire history of development, WHO, for example, only under Dr. Tedros started to provide living expenses for interns. Now, I can give an example from South Africa, and I'm a product of a government investment in a leadership or work program where the government would provide us after studying with a small stipend. They would place us in a host institution. They would make sure we have a performance contract. I think that's critical. What's your performance areas? They also set up a development program, and this is the National Research Foundation program in South Africa, and that was my entry into the workspace. And if I think of that, I think that's a recipe for success. How do you professionalize youth work? Within professionalization, on the other end of the spectrum, coming out of 2 years in the African Union, I was met with not having a clear terms of reference, finally having a terms of reference, but we were not contracted. We were given no clear roles. We had essentially a window dressing role. And we could have accepted this window dressing role, or we could have stood up. And I won't get into the politics of it, but I personally wrote to the chairperson of the African Union last year to say, these are my concerns. And after making a lot of noise, they flew us to Addis Ababa to discuss it. So it's a small win, but an important win. And I think it's also critical for us as young people to speak out when we are in tokenistic positions, not paint a pretty picture. The final one that global health organizations have to think about is work culture. And I think, are we creating modern environments? Are we creating technology-driven environments? Are we creating environments where young people thrive? Are you giving young people projects? And I think in civil society, many people do that very well. Or are we getting into organizations that are bureaucratic, that still have manual systems, that are also toxic, where they take your work and pass it off as their own. So I think work culture is very important within that. To then go straight into youth responsibility, and I'll sort of end off after these points on youth responsibility. The one is figure out the game plan, young people. When people are inviting you, don't just go there. Ask the questions. Why are they inviting me? What can I influence? You even have the right to say no if it doesn't align to your passion. Once you get to a conference, what's your message? What evidence are you taking? What policy have you read? Don't just get into that space and ramble off. Then, very important that I think is lacking within our space, young people, is post-conference activity. As soon as someone says, let's write a blog, let's write a report, let's do a campaign, everybody disappears. Now, I know we're busy, but it's our responsibility to try and push forward the agenda. I think other key issues are, one or two key issues would probably be young people. How do we mobilize others? I think that's a big part of our responsibility. What we're finding in global health is elitist circles. How do we give other people a chance? How do we also make sure that we translate our message back to a constituency? Being in the African Union, for example, you find that everything's done on the policy level, but how much of it translates to the ground level? And civil society shows us the way with that. The final one really around youth responsibility also is, once you're in an organization, don't lose your energetic, creative, fun youth voice. This really frustrates me, Richard, Dr. Natasha, and others, is that people become puppets. Now I know, and I'm there too. I was not born with a father who was Bill Gates. We do have financial well-being. We do think about our careers. But at the end of the day, if you get into that space and you just conform, you don't ask questions, you paint the pretty pictures, what are you bringing to the table? So I'm going to end off there because, Richard, I think you may throw me off if I don't end off.
I was actually just about to throw you off, but in a more polite way. But thank you very much, Dr. Shakira. I think this is why, even at the start of the panel, looking at the vast experience we have with the young people, an hour will definitely not be enough to do justice to all of the topics. But just to reflect on a few of the things you said, particularly reflecting of professionalizing youth work. And I believe each and every panelist we have here today is here today because they have the capacity, but they've also been able to become professionals in that field. And that professionalism came as a result of organizations investing financially also in the young people. And so that is very important. But this leads me also to my next question. And I would want as much as possible for the panelists, let's keep it a bit brief. With Dr. Natasha, we've also had the opportunity to work on a number of projects within the Youth Coalition, also with your own organization, Copper Rose. And we have had a number of discussions around young people's meaningful engagement. You are a co-founder, you are a CEO basically supporting young people and empowering programs. How do we support greater leadership among traditionally excluded and underrepresented youth?
Thank you so much, Richard. When I think about supporting youth leadership, I could summarize it in one word, which is investment. There needs to be investment on both ends. I'll start from donors and international organizations and people that usually call on young people to come for these conferences, to do lots of work on the ground. There's needs to invest in young people. When I was starting out, I saw myself as a late person to the party. I just joined this movement when I was around 22, which was late because most people I met were there from the time they were teenagers. But one thing I decided was that with the organizations that I worked with, I needed them to invest more in my work and in my organization beyond just me, beyond that conference. And that's what organizations need to do. They need to think about young people more than the young people they are sponsoring. I've heard young people complain about how they can be flown around the world, but their organization can't even be given a $10,000. And so there's need to invest in young people's skills. And I've been privileged to work with organizations that have been willing to fund Copperos. And those that haven't, I literally ask them and call them out to fund our work, because that will be the true support that we need. So there is need to invest in youth-led organizations. And right now there's a lot of talk about capacity. For organizations where capacity is an issue, there are opportunities to start out small and then grow it out over the next couple of years, because we also need to think long-term, even in our engagement with young people. My second thoughts around investment are for young people. Young people need to invest in themselves. I always tell the people I mentor that nobody is going to pay you to learn. Yeah. And so there is need to invest in our own skills. We may be activists, we may be doing all kinds of work on the ground, but we also need to be intellectuals. We need to be knowledgeable. When we get into that meeting, we need to contribute, we need to understand the subject, and we can be experts in our own work. Over the years, I've been able to start working actually as an expert and getting consultations and things like that. But that's because I have gained the academic qualifications, but also the experience in being able to write reports, being able to write policy briefs, being able to connect with young people and translate that into materials which can get into policy. And so there's need to invest and to have a career as a young person, because you'll be more valuable to the sector than just making noise, because after that noise, there's work that needs to be done. Lastly, I want to say that mentorship is very important, because the youth space is a very dynamic space. It's not a static space. There are age things to deal with. And so in the few number of years that you're going to be a young person, you need to also build other young people, but also you need to learn from people that have been there, who can guide you through it and help you make shortcuts. Because in my short career as a global youth activist, I think I've done so much more than some people I found who had been doing this work. And that has been because of mentorship and learning from people who've been there. I'll pause here for now.
Thank you very much, Dr. Natasha, and particularly for sharing your own experience around investment, because like I mentioned, we are all product of investment by different organizations. But one thing you mentioned, which is particularly resonating, is also that after the noise, there is work that has to be done. And a lot of times we see young people being engaged, but to the end of writing reports, putting them on social media, making them hold placards, and so we were engaged. But afterwards, has that young person been actually empowered? Do they even know how to write a report? Do they even know how to, write a proposal? basically capacity is built but towards implementing programs to write beautiful report, but not to sustain the young people themselves to have the capacity to also survive professionally. And I think this leads me to another question for our political office holder. Mainly we ask, where are the young people in politics? Are they not around? I remember some time ago, the UN Youth Envoy launched the program on Not Too Young to Run to encourage a lot of young people to go into politics. So Honorable Johnson Sakaja, can you tell us how you've been able to create an enabling environment for young people to engage and drive policy and legislative processes, particularly in relation also to health? And I mean, specifically, if you could share some lessons that you have learned and that could also be applied across other continents to get more young people in your position.
Thank you. I'll go into that and I'll tell you what we've been able to do as young parliamentarians and in my capacity as a leader, as a young person. But before that, I think really it is not much about how governments and these institutions are able to create space for young people. Because I will tell you one thing, there is no government on the world, in this entire world, in Africa, that is comfortable or that is eager to have young people participate. It just doesn't happen. Young people, it's not convenient, it is not comfortable. Young people come with a different dynamic, a different energy. So if we just wait to be engaged and to be, and for them to invest in us and for them to call us to conferences and tick boxes, it won't happen. And it'll just be, as I think somebody said, Shakira, it'll just be talking. So we need to make sure that the young people of this continent and of the world are not forced, to be tolerated, but to be reckoned with, such that they cannot ignore us anymore. And that is by being organized. If you're better organized, then you become better recognized. And they will not be able to do anything without including us and for us being there. And that starts with, first of all, making sure we have the information. It is there. I've seen somebody in the video saying that young people don't have the right information. It is very, for me, worrying that this generation we have today, which I'm part of, is the most connected, yet the least engaged. If you look at the generations of young people in the 60s, in the 70s, if you look at the independence struggle, there was no Twitter, there was no WhatsApp, there was no Facebook, but they had to go out of their comfort zones, connect and engage. If you look at the fights for instance, in Kenya, we can talk about multipartism. We didn't have the convenience of social media and technology, but they actually did something. And sometimes the luxury of being able to, tweet and press a button makes us lazy to come out and organize. And we need to actually get out and organize and engage. As we've said, and I've said many times, if we're not on the negotiating table, we're on the menu. And for many of us, we're not on the table. We actually are part of the menu, and it's very convenient for governments to actually do what they're doing without us. So what we've been able to do, I got into Parliament first in 2013. Yeah, I was a young 28-year-old when I got into Parliament, and I found that there are many young people who had been elected at that time, and we formed this organization called the Young Parliamentarians organization, which came up with certain structures. We're able to, despite a very divisive political atmosphere in Kenya, to have politicians from across the board and said, look, since we're the few who are here, out of a parliament of more than 300, we're only 50 of us, let us organize ourselves and let's now get other young people. So we created many reference groups in different sectors, including in health sector, and we're able to pass around 15 pieces of legislation, which is a record. We're able to again pass a number of motions and groundbreaking legislation in this country. And many of those young people at that time who were in the reference groups, and those in Kenya might know someone like Gideon Keter. He was not a member of parliament. Now in this last election in 2017, we were able to come in. I was able to get elected in the biggest city in this country because of that kind of engagement. And we've created such platforms, such forums for young people to be able to engage. But for me, I always go out and tell them, no one is going to come and knock at your door and tell you it's your time. We must realize that there's nothing more powerful than a generation that is in tune with its season and knows that it's our time to do these things. There is no calendar that says, okay, now we're handing over to you. No one is going to do that. So we must make sure that we cannot be ignored, not that we expect them just to tolerate us, because they will do that out of their own convenience. We engage with universities, we engage with civil society, we engage with youth-led organizations. We've come up with a framework with Y-ACT, which is about meaningful youth engagement, not just the normal youth engagement we have, which is just come, we need a few of you to sign a list and be part of this conference, but meaningful youth engagement. And what we've seen over the past few months is that even now the lawmakers and policymakers are appreciating that there's actually a new flavor that comes in when you have young people on the table. that there are new perspectives, there are different ways of doing it, and that innovation. If you look at Agenda 2063, Aspiration 6 states that it is the creativity, energy, and innovation of Africa's youth that will be the driving force behind the continent's political and social, cultural, economic transformation. Those are high-sounding words. They mean nothing if after this conference, you just go back and sit on your couch and tweet. Get out there, organize, so that no one can be comfortable by ignoring you, but that you have to be engaged and to be on the table. And that's my call to all the young people. And let's get more of us elected, because the more of us are in there, in parliament, in governors, in different sectors of leadership, then the more we understand why we need to get young people meaningfully engaged and how we divert our priorities to young people. Richard.
Thank you very much, Honorable Sakaja. And I continue to be just excited about how direct and straightforward our panelists are today, particularly when it comes to youth engagement. For instance, making it clear that it is not in the interest of any politician or government to see young people fully organized and mobilized, because that means that accountability, that means that we're going to be calling for action. And I hope that the partners who are joining us, international development partners, donors who are joining in, this is the message. You have to build our capacity. You have to help us organize ourselves. And that means that investing in the young people, because definitely we talk about demographic dividend, but at the end, we have the numbers and we have to invest. But this leads to one of our panelists who we've mentioned a number of challenges. We've mentioned how young people are not engaged, but she's directly involved in co-founding their own organizations and supporting Transform Health System in West Africa through the use of digital technologies. Tito, what kind of challenges did you face when you set out to set up a youth-led company trying to break through in this sector? Because we are hearing from our other panelists that it seems we say support young people. Honorable Sakaja quoted beautifully, say support young people, they are the transformation. Are you receiving such support? What kind of challenges did you face?
So, it's quite interesting, right? Because I feel that the bar for what is considered a quote unquote youth is always constantly moving. I'll give an example. Recently in Nigeria, it was called that our state governor for Lagos State was a youth, and he's a gentleman that's in his 50s, right? So really, what is, first of all, even a youth in the first place, right? How do you even begin to qualify and classify them? But I'll say, even as an organization, just being able to get a seat at the table, regardless of your work, regardless of your background, is tough for anybody in any demographic. When we started our company, Helium Health, honestly, we didn't want to even focus on the public sector. We didn't want to try and get involved with government, and not because we believe we didn't have the capacity or we didn't have the skills or anything like that, but purely because how could we possibly find a way? We've grown up in this society where, we don't feel encouraged. There's no capacity building. People only talk about wanting to uplift the youth, but nothing is ever done about it. However, it didn't actually occur that way. I think our passion for our solutions actually is what translated and make sure that we go into that sector. Because as we all know, for healthcare, if you really want to talk about change, if you want to talk about transformation digitally, you must involve the public sector. If not, you're fooling yourself in the first place, right? So when we started our business and purely focused on the private sector, our work really spoke for ourselves. I would say that the only reason we were really able to scale and grow despite funding and things like that was because of word of mouth. We, as young co-founders, were dedicated to every single aspect of the business. We would run the cables for networking ourselves. We would train ourselves. We would follow up with the clients, those at the bottom of the totem pole in the facilities, those at the top as well, making sure that we gave our personal touch. And I think it doesn't matter which country you're from or anything like that. If you're giving a service business and somebody, in fact, the owners of the business are personally asking you for your feedback and personally able to attend to you, that makes you believe that this is a great service in the first place. So us doing that, we didn't realize that we were building a reputation for ourselves that was going to precede us in our company. And to the point in which we actually got engaged by government. And this is something that we really had to think about as a company, right? So that, do we want to go down this path? Do we even have the capacity in the first place? Because it can be a very messy business. But I think a lot of the times, being faced and being young and, people making comments, okay, so if anything happens to the company, who do we then hold? And we're saying, oh, it's us all, and everyone that owns the company is under 30, right, at this point in time. especially when you're dealing in healthcare and, you know, there's sensitive client data, you know, you're changing the operations of the facility, and, you know, hospitals are one of the most sensitive places in the world. So I would say a lot of it, right? I would tell young people and encourage them that let your work speak for yourself. I don't believe in just waking up and saying, do you know what, you must put me at a seat at the table. No, you have to earn it. You have to show that you've done something to be able to deserve that seat at the table in the first place. So we've grown now to a company where, you know, nobody can doubt our capacity. Nobody can say that, you know what, we're helping the government with their COVID-19 testing or this and that based on a number of reasons or based on another reason apart from our standard of work, right? So I think that's important. So if you let your work and you do good work, let it speak for yourself. Constantly engage, constantly learn, do your research, because also, again, and I can't remember which of our panelists mentioned this, right? You can't go out and, yes, you're demanding for a seat at the table, but you're not sure about what's going on in your current political climate. It makes no sense whatsoever, right? So again, what are you demanding for in the first place? What is the change that you say that you want, but you're not even abreast about the current affairs of your country? Again, so not that I don't believe that, you know, those empowered do play a role in, you know, encouraging us. I think that the youth themselves also need to be able to take a liking, you know, do their own research. It's not until government endorses you that you believe you're doing true work. No, go out there and start something yourself. And again, if they notice you, they notice. If they don't, well, at least you're helping your own communities. And isn't that what really matters? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much. And just to pick on your last word, go out there and establish yourself. And I think that is what it's resonating a lot with a lot of our panelists. Shakira talking about the issue of young people taking up responsibilities and speaking up if they recognize that they are being tokenized. Dr. Natasha also mentioned the issue of investment, investing in your own skill and capacity so that when you are actually given a seat at the table, you can prove your worth. And Honorable Johnson Sakaja also reflecting that indeed, it's not in the interest of the government to have you as mobilized and as energetic as possible, because that means that we will begin to push for a lot of accountability. And reading through a lot of the chats that our audience are, you know, asking, some of them are really raising some important concern, but just, I think, summarizing some of what they are asking, basically, a lot of the questions are focusing on what kind of skills and attributes do you think young people need to become effective leaders in global health? Because basically we have our panelists here who are in this field, who have achieved a lot because you have employed some kind of skills, you have some kind of attribute. Our young panelists our young audience who are joining want to know, what skills and attribute do you think they will need to become effective in the field of global health? Maybe a minute for each of our panelists. Dr. Shakira.
Richard, how can you only give me a minute? But a quick one. I think it speaks a little bit to what Dr. Natasha said as well. And in my experience, you know, it looks easy. It looks easy for us to be able to sit here and sit in various spaces. But we have spent days and nights studying, and really, I think the formal qualifications hold a lot. But I think in addition to the formal qualification, it speaks to what the Honorable said. How do you work in advocacy? How do you work in communities? What's your passion? So I think that your technical skills, from communication to the ability to write to the ability to speak, is critical. But then I also think your ability to translate that into action will make you marketable at any point.
Yeah, Dr. Natasha, young people, the skills they need to become a CEO like you.
Thanks, Richard, and please do call me Natasha. Well, I'm thinking of three things right now. The first thing I'm thinking of is patience, because sometimes these things take time. As you are building skills, as you are understanding the sector, it may take some time. Even partnerships take time. So I would say that patience is very important. Another thing that's important is working as a team. Honorable Sakaja mentioned something about how we're so connected yet not engaged. We need to engage with other young people. Text people you'll find, oh, hi, can we grab coffee? Because iron sharpens iron, and you need other young people. For example, Richard does do some work with copper rolls, because I know how great he is. And so you need to connect with other people who can help build what you're building. And lastly, on the part of donors and other organizations, I would say understanding of the kind of leadership, because there's different kind of leaders. There are some young people who are good at advocacy and campaigns, and those people may not be the best to start organizations, but they may be the best to lead campaigns. So it's understanding the kind of young person and the kind of leader they are and respecting them for that. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Dr. Natasha. Dr. Shakira wants me to say Shakira, Dr. Natasha wants me to say Natasha. So I guess at this point I will drop the doctor. But Honorable Johnson Sakaja, I will keep using the honorable. When it comes to, when it comes to young people and politics, people say it's not a cheap adventure to venture into politics and decision making. How do young people also get into spaces like you are? Because you are not only combining the work of politics, but you're actually cutting across even to the field of health and mobilizing a lot of young people.
Okay, let me say this. First of all, I joined the young people in Kenya, and everyone just calls me Sakaja, or in fact, they call me Saks. That's the nickname they use.
At this point, we all want to be young people and drop the title.
Yeah, or they call me Super Senator. But anyway, let me say this. It's not easy, especially for young people. We have to do twice as much to get noticed. But I've always held on to, 4 R's. I call them the 4 R's, letter R. The first one is resolve. We must resolve, create a loop, a loyalty loop of people whom you have sold whatever gospel it is in whichever area that they believe in fundamentally and very strongly. So it is not that today you're working on this issue, tomorrow it's a different issue. Have certain principles that you create a gospel around it and you create that resolve. There is nothing more powerful than those who have resolved on an agenda. And then you create a loop around that. Number 2, research. When you get your space on that table and you get the mic and you get to open your mouth, what comes out of it must be informed. You must read. You must be knowledgeable, and we have all the resources available to us online and with those who have been there before us. Get a mentor, but have information with you. So that is the second R, which is to research. Number 3, rehearse. Rehearse. Sharpen your skill. Whatever it is, the Bible, I like reading the Bible, and it says, if you see a man, skilled at what he does, he will sit before kings. And once you are known to be very good at a particular thing, and whatever forum, they're like, okay, so who is the best in this area? And they say, oh, it is Dr. Shakira, or it is Natasha, or it is Tito, or it is Jonathan. I've seen my former classmate as one of the attendees in Maluda, that we know this guy is good at that. And that's how I got into this space. First of all, technically, I started politics as a driver. But I knew, despite being a driver, I wanted to be a leader. And that is why by the age of 24, I was contributing to the constitution-making process. I became the chairman of the ruling party at 27 and became an MP because I was known for a certain skill that I honed. And my technical skill then was on numbers. So make sure you rehearse. There's a book by Malcolm Gladwell, I think it's called Mastery or something, about the 10,000-hour rule. You must keep doing that which you're good at. If it is public speaking, get an opportunity. Talk to your siblings, talk in front of the mirror, but rehearse and be good at it. And finally, be resilient. Not every day will be good. As I've said, not everyone wants you on the table. People will put you down. I have been put down many times. People grow a thick skin, grow up, but really be resilient. No matter anybody who puts you down, don't let them put you down. Again, the Bible says, let no one look down upon you because you're young, but set an example, by being resilient. And once you focus on that, on those 4 R's and keep doing it, I assure you, you're the only person standing between yourself and success. And once you resolve, many people will vie for office. Many people will go do that master's without the resources. And because of that resolve, you'll be able to find a way to do it. I've seen, I think someone here, I think it's Shakira, or who has a master's in public health, and now she wants to be an actor. It starts with that resolve. So just follow those 4 R's. And I assure you, if you don't succeed, look for me in Nairobi, and I'll pay you back. That doesn't work.
So to our audience, Honorable Sakaja has just given us a blank check to visit in Nairobi. But I guess if there's any takeaway from this question, we are hearing resilience, we are hearing young people investing in your own capacity, and we are hearing pushing forward, because it's not as if there is someone waiting for you to engage you. You have to push forward on your own to engage other people. And so I will move to Tito, also your comment on this. You are actually having your own startup, and you have talked about some of the challenges. How can young people also build some of the effective skills?
Yeah, so it's interesting, right? Because when people say skills, especially for young people, they're like, oh, do you do Excel or Microsoft Office? Do you know how to code? Do you know how to do this? Do you know how to write a proposal? Do you know how to, all these things, right? And don't get me wrong, not that they're not relevant and not that they're not great to be able to maybe do an everyday job. However, in my opinion, those things can be learned, right? Again, there's a YouTube video, I like to say, for everything, right? So there's nothing in this world that you can't research and find out how to do as long as you have access to the internet. For me, the real skills that really matter, the real skills that unfortunately can't be learned or even a lot harder to learn are your critical thinking skills, right? Are your interpersonal skills. It's skills like that. And, I'll be honest with you, when we hire in Helium Health and we have the most amazing, people that work for us, truly, we're blessed, right? We don't look at, oh, did this person get a first class from Harvard or anything like that? I'm telling you, it does not matter, right? What really matters is, how does that person think on their feet? How do they engage with other people in an environment like this? That for us is more important to know whether you're able to regurgitate your information from your lecture and come out with a first class degree. Because again, as a young person, especially, you're going to literally hit your head on the brick wall, they like to say, right? You will have obstacles constantly because those at the top don't necessarily want to hand over power and give you, a chance to be able to succeed. So when you do find those problems, what are you going to do about it? Again, it's only critical thinking that can really help you a lot of the times. And that is a skill that is a lot harder to use to gain. I don't think that there is a course or anything like that that you can go and learn. You only learn by really doing, right? Interpersonal skills as well. How do you engage and how do you be able to convey your idea and what you're talking about to another party? Again, I saw one of the questions or comments was that there seems to be a big disconnect between the youth and the older generation, almost as if, you can be coming and pitching an idea and, you leave there and they have no idea what you've said. And it's as if you're speaking French, right? So how's your different language? How do you then, communicate very, very clearly your idea, your plans, your strategies? Again, these are a lot harder than saying, okay, you went to MIT and you have so grades in like coding or whatever it may be, right? I think that that's a lot harder. So I think that really as youth, and when we think about it and wanting to take over, as long as you're able to think critically, as long as you're able to engage and communicate your ideas effectively, you'll definitely be all right. Everything else, like I say, you can watch a YouTube video for it and you'll be able to move on. Yeah.
I particularly love that we can learn on our own, and a lot of soft skills, YouTube videos, but basically building that soft skill, that more of an intelligence approach of dealing with a lot of things, and that is very important. There are so many comments, there are so many chats, over 130 young people joining us from all over the world today. We cannot mention everyone's comment, but we also don't have a lot of time. So what we'll be doing is that for those of you in the audience, we are going to share a quick poll now, where you can share your views as well. So it's going to be a quick poll that will be shared, and then you can just select your various options so that we get to know. So whilst we engage you in the poll, we will go back to our panelists to also continue with the discussion. So we have mentioned a number of things, particularly when it comes to investment and young people. I will pick up on what His Excellency President Uhuru Kenyatta said on Monday, 8th March, at the opening ceremony of AHAIC, and he mentioned that African governments have to put youth at the core of their UHC programs. And to quote him specifically, he said, the youth are the key constituencies in driving momentum towards UHC, and that should not be sidelined. We should engage with and empower our youth, giving them the knowledge and skill to take charge of their health. And this is the words of Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta during the opening session of the conference. Now, this is a person of a political office, the highest office of the land, but also other African leaders out there. If policymakers want to invest in one intervention that will improve youth participation in leadership in global health, of course, including digital health, because this has been very topical, investing in digital health during COVID-19 and post-COVID-19. What should that be? And I'll go back to our panelists. I know 1 minute is not enough, but we'll have to stick to 1 minute again. We have mentioned a number of things. If policymakers want to make an intervention in digital health, particularly also digital health and young people, what should that be? Natasha.
Wow, was caught off guard. Well, my thoughts are that when we want to make an investment in digital health, one thing that would be very important is to improve digital penetration. With the COVID pandemic, there has been a push towards digital platforms, but where I work in some of the areas in Zambia, there is no connection. There is no infrastructure that could allow more digital media to be used for education, for outreach, for empowerment. So that's a very big gap. It's a huge leap. And so if I had to choose one thing to invest in, I would say digital infrastructure with a long-term goal to improve digital penetration, especially in the most impoverished communities.
Thank you very much, Shakira.
I'm covered by Natasha, but I want to emphasize that I think we need to push advocacy on electricity and the infrastructure in our African countries. I want to talk about investment in professionalization. I think that's important. It can be formal, it can also be informal, create supportive work cultures, create work cultures where young people will thrive. And finally, to add off, sorry, Richard, you said one, but I'm going to add on and say finally that it's not just about the development of ourselves. Once we're developed as young professionals, how do we start to develop the next generation as well?
How do we start to develop the next generation as well? And I will go to Tito. You are a co-founder, you need some more funding. What's your intervention?
Honestly, so the real intervention that government can honestly make, I would say is, two things really: power and data, right? I'll speak from experience. When everybody had to start working remotely, and we don't have constant power, that's a lot more that people were spending on electricity and things like that. We had to actually help some of our staff actually subsidize those costs so they could even get the work done. Again, if during that time government had helped us subsidize or reduce tariffs or anything like that, again, it would be more affordable for people to be able to work from home. Again, people would be safer, things like that. And of course, data, because like I said, everything is on the internet. Once you have your laptop and internet connectivity, you can really work from anywhere. So again, having to have that subsidized and finding a way to do it will really help to be able to push and encourage those with tech companies like myself and in healthcare to be able to thrive and prosper.
Great. And then the last mic to Honorable Sakaja. You are actually a policymaker. So what would be that one intervention that you would make as a policymaker to make sure young people are included in decision making, also particularly in the area of digital health?
Thank you. You see, the opportunity, and I keep saying every problem is an opportunity in disguise. What this COVID pandemic has shown us is the amount of innovation that actually exists on the continent. And as a policymaker, just look at, I think it's just today or yesterday, Flutterwave in Nigeria got an investment of $170 million because of the tech solutions that they have in the digital finance space. And for us as policymakers, it's really to create the appropriate environment. It's quite a coincidence. Currently, I'm sponsoring a bill in the Kenyan Parliament on startups, and I'm glad it's Tito who's spoken up before me, of how we create an enabling environment for our startups to be able to attract investment. There's huge innovation on the continent, and I know there's everyone around the world, and I've said earlier that I have a focus and a bias to Africa. But the kind of innovation that is coming out of this continent needs the proper environment to do it. We have many tech companies. These days, we call this place the Silicon Savannah. Everyone is looking at Africa as a next frontier, and they're bringing investments, but our governments need to be able to understand that this is a space they're not used to, and they're able to create that necessary regulatory framework. That's what's happening in Nigeria, in Kenya, in South Africa, in many of these continents, of these countries, the innovation hubs. Finally, I was once in, San Francisco, which is the Silicon Valley, the hub of all this innovation. And they asked me, I was speaking at the Institute for the Future, they asked me, why is it that we're seeing such great innovation coming from Africa? And I told them, necessity is the mother of invention. The platforms we have are the same. What Tito is using to code is the same as what that person in San Fran is using, or that person in Japan, but the needs are different. We are creating solutions for healthcare. We're creating solutions to connect women with water, to get school fees paid. And that is why this is the frontier. So what I do as a policymaker really is to focus on legislation like the startup bill, to create incentives, to create, like a virtual economic, a special economic zone, so that all our young people who are in that area, because that is the next frontier. It is no longer about oil. It's no longer about minerals and copper and what is below the ground. It is what is above the ground. And as the youngest continent, the investment must be in young people to give them the atmosphere to actually innovate. And I think that is the solution. And once we innovate, all these startups, once they grow, you'll find now the digital health space has solutions that the world has not seen before. I am sure. The same way 10 years ago, no one would imagine we'd be doing a virtual conference like this, you know, with all these participants. It's the same way, no one can guess what 10 years from now will show us. But what you can do is to invest in that infrastructure. And I'm glad Natasha has spoken about that, the connectivity, the fiber, and the gadgets and the devices to our young people, and just wait and see what's going to happen. It will be amazing. The future is bright for us.
It will be amazing. The future is bright for us. And thank you very much to our amazing panelists for all the amazing contributions. Now we get to see the polls. There are so many comments coming from our audience. We were not able to take some of your questions, but I'm hoping that the polls did justice for you to also make input. And clearly we are, wow, the poll we see the leading is that establish long-term mechanisms for meaningful involvement of diverse groups of young people. That is what is leading the poll. And I think this directly relates to what Honorable Sakaja just mentioned, that as policymakers, they can create that environment that can ensure that as many young people are being engaged as possible and as many young people get the opportunity to participate in the decision-making process. So thank you very much for sharing and also for contributing to the polls. Unfortunately, we do not have enough time, but we want to say thank you for your time for attending this session. And don't forget that after we conclude this session, please do return to the auditorium on the conference platform to view the next session. There are a number of sessions to choose from, and you can join a session of your preference. But also before the next session starts, please also know that you can take a few minutes to also visit the exhibition, where you can view partner booths and chat with representatives of partner organizations that you want to meet once again. So please do feel free and join the many other sessions. For Transform Health, Fondation Botnar, and also the Y-ACT, it was very important that we continue to have these discussions on how we strengthen youth leadership in global health. And the conversation does not end here. It's a 1-hour session. This was to inspire you. This was to empower you. This was to provide you the information that you need, but the conversation should continue. And so you can continue the conversations to join on the various social media platforms. You can use the hashtags that are with youth at AHAIC. You can also engage with Transform Health. Please engage with the different stakeholders. With Transform Health, I think we are sharing some of the information through the chat, but you can also visit at transformhealth.org. Also, join the various social media platforms, and let's keep the conversation going. So once again, a very, very big thank you to Dr. Natasha Salif-Kaoma, to Dr. Shakira Choonara, to Tito, Ovia, and also to Honorable Johnson Sakaja for making this panel not only amazing, but also informative and direct, because this is one of the panels where I realized that we are being critical, but also constructive with some of the things that we would like to move forward. So thank you all very much for joining, and I hope to catch you all on either other sessions or other platforms.
Thank you. You've done a great job, Richard. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Richard.
Thank you.